Thanks, listeners. We're back to the first Daz special on aliens. We Tom and I are riveted, right? In fact, I've spoken more than I should do, and I think Tom's got a brilliant question. But I think we're gonna get Daz to flow, and then you bring in your that question.
Well,
Yeah.
We were on the Nordics,
Yeah,
so
yeah,
we'll pick up from there. Yeah?
Okay,
for it.
The Nordics were a group of crashed ETs. What you must appreciate is that there's at least a dozen crews of crashed or exiled ETs, because of course if you're exiled and you need an oxygen planet, then this planet is the one. And most of them got bounced off or given a lift away, but some of them stayed. And the Nordics developed the Indian caste system, and also they developed Hinduism, because Hinduism's the oldest religion on the planet. I think it
Mahabharat and Hare Krishna and all.
I think you're talking 20 odd thousand years ago, so you're predating most things. But you see, Hitler was an Ashkenazi Jew, and the kicker is, if you're white, it's actually impossible to be a Jew. You're actually a Canaanite, and it's the bloodline of Cain that rule the world, and they descend from a group of extraterrestrials called the Igigi. And you can Google them.
You mentioned that before.
This does ring a bell. The Canaanites.
Yeah.
You can Google them, and you'll find them on Wikipedia. Although the images depicting them are vastly overrated, because they actually look like Mr. Burns from The Simpsons. So they crashed about 20,000 years ago, and they stayed on Earth for 80 years. And of course, they said love is blind. This crew, they didn't have a conscience. They brought us the Richard Dawkins selfish gene, and they brought us the Rh negative blood group, and they stayed for 80 years, and a couple of them decided to stay. Think, oh, we're happy here, you can go away, you can keep in touch. And their crew from time to time kept on coming back and seeing how they were doing, and the Canaanites spread. I mean, they really did. They spread throughout the Middle East. So then they kept on checking back to see them, and all of a sudden they came back, because these would have time travel. And they said, well, there's trouble ahead for you. You've got a flood coming that's going to kill all you lot. So let's...
Is this Gilgamesh? Is this...
This is the Great Flood.
The Noah's Ark thing.
Yeah, Noah's Ark. But Noah was a Canaanite. Noah was the target of the flood. And Uriel told me about that when I read...
Good old Uriel, Introduce me to Uriel
first. High-dimensional being, stroke angel.
Yeah.
And Uriel, well, I said to Uriel, you were supposedly the angel that warned Noah about the flood. That's a lie. We wanted him dead. And why did you want him dead? Well, he was a Canaanite. He was in the bloodline of Cain, and they didn't have a conscience. And that's where the Cain and Abel story from the Bible comes from. Cain was never killed or punished by the divine for killing his own brother, because he was termed an animal, because he didn't have a conscience.
So that's on the second rung, isn't it? So exactly.
So basically, the Igigi, so their family said, look, you're going to be flooded here. We're going to help you escape. The 12 lost tribes of Israel were never lost. 9 of them were killed in the flood, and 3 of them were evacuated to Europe. That's where the Ashkenazi Jews. That's where the.
These are the Canaanite Jews. Yeah.
They were evacuated to Europe. And then they were evacuated to Europe, and in spite, these Igigi said, look, there's a plan to take over the world. Money, media, religion, secret societies, there's your plan to take over the world. And they follow that plan to this very day. And they own everything. The Canaanites that claim to be white Jews. Because if you're a Jew, you are black from Ethiopia. But you see, the reason why the Canaanites had to have
the Ark of the Covenant and all that stuff,
the reason why they had to have a better rep, as it were, is because the Canaanites used to be known as the unclean or the devil by the Nubians, because they used to rape women and children in public, and that's why you won't find any black people implicated in Pizzagate, because it's in the genes. That's why you got your paedophile priest, because it's in the genes. But that's a different story. Basically,
I don't think we'll do that. That's going to be too.
No, but so the Igigi, we have the Igigi to thank for this entire belief system, and their descendants literally own everything.
So where does like Hitler come? You're saying it's the Agigi.
Yeah.
Hitler wanted a Nordic Aryan race.
Yeah. Well, it was spin. He was sponsored, right? It's a divide and conquer tool. He was just used as a puppet. He wanted an Aryan race, but he had really bad press on the Holocaust, and the Holocaust was nowhere near what it was claimed. And also, I got booted off one of the social media for sticking up for Hitler. But you see, if you've ever read Mein Kampf, he was right, because he said in Mein Kampf, Jews own all the press and all the media, and they do. 96% of the world's media is owned by 6 Jewish corporations, and that's how they do
Is that
it.
including Bloomsburg?
Everything.
Yeah.
No, I've heard that as well.
So
I've got the
everything.
book. Mein Kampf.
So Mein Kampf, yeah. So I actually got booted one. I don't know on social media. I got booted off. I had to take back some tweets because I agreed with Hitler, but he was right. So they literally own everything. There's a list. There's a list that I post sometimes on my social media. It's from Good News About God, and it's got a huge list of things owned by Jews. And I got my calculator out one day, and I reckon there's $8,000 trillion in this list, all owned by Jews. That's 100 times the entire GDP, world's GDP in cash. And you can call me anti-Semitic, even though there's 300 million Semites, Arab Semites in the world. That anti-Semitic thing is rubbish. And at the end of the day, they're about to get found out, and they know it because there's telltale signs everywhere. My brother is an artist, and he has put pieces in auctions, and he doesn't put too many, but he just puts the occasional one, and he says auction prices are going through the roof because rich people are trying to get out of money, and they're trying to get into things that are going to maintain a value because they know the current belief system is all but finished. I mean, it is called the Golden Age. We have got amazing things to look forward to. We're just in a bit of a transition at the minute.
I'm an archaeologist and I'm also an actor, but on the archaeological side of things, I've given lectures on the Ahnenerbe, which was set up by Himmler. I think the date was the 1st of July 1935, but I stand corrected on that. He set up the Ahnenerbe to seek out this Nordic race, which occurred 10,000 years ago. The backstory with this is that they had to fake a lot of the evidence, but there's one interesting thing about this. When I first started going to Orkney, right, the Orcadian archaeologists were saying actually we're keeping back what we know, right, and what they knew was that the development of stone circles, the development of pottery, the development of agriculture, right, was developing in Orkney. Right? So the idea of Stonehenge came from Orkney, the idea of pottery came from Orkney, the idea of agriculture came from Orkney, the idea of civilization came from Orkney, maybe writing came from Orkney, right? They said we've got to be very, very careful when we bring this out. Going back to 1935, and I'm very dangerous ground, but if I said that the Ahnenerbe had a point, that there was a race from the north that was developing these things, and then they suddenly started to find it in Orkney, you start to realise that actually, you know, they've got a point. They've got a point, and I'm trying to. I want to say more, but they've got a point. And one thing I'm going to say, right? So I'm agreeing with you. I'm agreeing totally. So there's a point. I read a quote. I don't know where it was, but when I click onto my Hotmail now, right, I make it so I don't have any of this Brexit news or crap. I have my Hotmail and there's nothing on it, right? Just go to my Hotmail. But I clicked onto something the other day and I had a link saying Carl Jung, the psychiatrist, who was a contemporary of oh God, I've forgotten his name. Who was the other psychiatrist? Freud. Sigmund Freud, yeah. Carl Jung was a contemporary of Sigmund Freud. He said he compared Adolf Hitler with Muhammad. And I'm reading this. He compared Adolf Hitler with Muhammad. And you start to think, I think he was right. Would
Well,
you agree? The way that the explosion happened with Muhammad, right from nowhere.
I know Muhammad is. See, the Canaanites own everything.
Yeah.
Right? They run everything. That's your common denominator. They created Hitler. They funded Hitler. They created the Vatican. They gave Muhammad the Quran. The Vatican gave the Quran to Muhammad to divide the East and the West spiritually. This hidden Canaanite hand is everywhere. Now, as I would point out, coming back to the Aryans, I think, were about 20,000 years ago, but they never made any attempt to stay within their breed, kind of thing. So their bloodline got watered down, kind of thing. Now, the Canaanites, if you took every member of the European royal families, this is why they interbreed. They interbreed because they've all got Rh negative blood groups, but they interbreed for this. If you're above 70% Rh negative, that makes you a Gigi. And if you're a Gigi, then the angels and the gods can't connect with you, so they get away with murder. They literally get away with everything because they cannot be monitored under any way, shape or form. And they literally own everything. It's white Jews, aka Canaanites, but they call themselves white Jews. The only reason they've got a claim on Jerusalem is because Jerusalem was founded by the Canaanite king of Salem. But they won't admit that they're Canaanites because Canaanites, they don't want God's chosen people also being called the devil. And that's what they had to rebrand. They had to rebrand to hide the fact that everyone used to call them the devil because they used to rape women and children in public. And they are, I dread to think what they do behind closed doors. Horrible. But they're finished. They're finished.
But we do know what they do behind closed doors. These are the same people who are paedophiles. We do know. We do know.
But, you know, no, I bet they do other stuff too that we can't even dream about.
Yeah, I don't want to dream about it.
No, but we can't even keep tabs on them either because they can't, the angels and the gods can't connect. But yeah, it's all roads lead back to the Agigi. And that's it. That's it.
Is Jesus a Canaanite?
Oh, no.
Because they call him King of the Jews.
Yeshua, no, he was never a Jew. He was an Edomite. He was born in Jordan. He was born in Amman. And there's the reason why he's so fed up with the bloodline of Cain is because they're his own people. In Palestine, they're his people. And they're doing that to his people. Oh, he's not happy. He's not a happy bunny. So that's if he comes back, they've had it. You imagine if he comes back and he takes
how would that work?
Well, no, the thing is, he'd need the extraterrestrial. I don't mind saying what the extraterrestrial is going to do because there's no way this can really be stopped. Are you familiar with the ITN Ashtar Command broadcast in 1977? In 1977, Ashtar Command tried to take over the ITN News and warn everyone.
Yeah, I've seen that.
Everything's in
Tell us more about that. Go on.
Everything's in digital now. So when they do it next,
They took over
it'll be in glorious digital and it'll be easy for them to do because they can just plug into the satellites.
Yeah.
So you imagine that platform, they can literally take over and beam into anyone's front room, doesn't matter what they're watching, zap.
Tell us more about that. Just paint the picture. How did this happen?
It was in 1977, and they were talking about Rhodesia. That's how old it was. And all of a sudden, it was fuzzy, and then it was a guy called Verillion from Ashtar Command, and it sounded a little bit fake, but it wasn't. It wasn't fake. It wasn't at all. It was just food for thought. Because, of course, there are rules. This planet's been quarantined for 2,000 years, but hasn't stopped them doing stuff.
Right.
But, they can't be too blatant.
Right.
But they can obviously see into the future, and they knew we were going to be in a bit of trouble, and they just thought they'd throw a curveball. Then it was ITN News, so it was and it was in the 70s. There was only 3 channels. there was only 3 channels at the time, so it was going to get massive audience. 6 o'clock news, ITN broadcast, bosh.
Everyone watched it back then.
Yeah.
So
And it was a warning, basically saying that the next 10 or 20 years is crucial to your whole planet, basically. But it sounded a little bit spooky, but I know it was legit.
do you know what? Straight out of here after this, I could be looking at it. ITN News.
It's on
But
YouTube.
you see, my point is they have digital now, and if they have that digital platform, they can put forward Maitreya's message. And you see, I know for a fact that Maitreya is going to incarnate as a minority, because Jesus was black, and he's going to weed out the bigots. Pose your question. If everyone realised, if every white Christian realised that Jesus was black, do you think they'd have as many followers in the West?
He's usually portrayed as a white man, isn't he?
Yeah, but he's
But
not,
obviously,
he's black.
yeah, I know
All
this.
the
he
major
was.
characters in the Bible were black, but you can, like Solomon, the Bible paints him as white, but if you read the Queen of Sheba's poems to Solomon,
Yeah, well, it's
he's
obvious,
black.
isn't it? It's obvious.
Even God was black in Bruce Almighty.
and you got Black Athena.
We are all black.
At least 2 more things to talk about.
Go on.
Roswell's the one we want to talk about next.
Okay, well, yeah, well, Roswell's obviously been a centre of contention. It's not as... The benevolent extraterrestrials were never, ever communicating. This is all malevolence. This is the Greys in bed with the secret government doing reverse engineering. There is a secret tunnel system linking all parts of America. It's a Mach 2 train linking all parts of America underground
I've bloody heard of this.
because they've got a laser tunnelling machine that can do 7 miles in a day. So these boys don't even need to go above down. They're just around. And yeah, it's reverse engineered craft. And then they started shooting down benevolent craft and
The nice guys,
re-engineering
yeah.
them and taking those capture. And
Yeah.
they can't. I don't know where the story went. If anyone finds it, do let me know. There was the story of a mother and a child, and they were Palladian, and their craft got shot down, and they were kept apart for 2 years. And in that time, they didn't even talk because they were able to communicate telepathically, and neither of them ate anything either. So the point being, everyone gets fat because we were actually created by a race of extraterrestrials that barely eat. I only eat every other day. So food's an addiction like crack cocaine, but that's a different story. We were created by extraterrestrials that barely eat. The Palladians have to eat 1 physical meal every 4 or 5 years. So that's a bit of food for thought.
Yeah.
But yeah, Roswell, very real. And that's where, of course, I think it's about 15 craft they've got, reverse engineered craft. That's where they're all based. And that's where all Skinny Bob was kept and all the rest of it. You seen the Skinny Bob?
Heard of that. Have
It's
you heard of
the
Skinny
video that they released from Roswell, Skinny Bob,
Bob? Yeah.
with the fingers are all legit. But the point being that if you want an interesting touch, go on YouTube and put Texas base zapped. About 5 years ago, there was the National Guard base in Fort Worth in Texas. They stole something from Afghanistan, and they were told to leave it alone, and they didn't. So they got blown up.
I think I've seen a film about it called The Objective,
Okay.
which starred Jonas Ball.
Oh, I have to check that out.
Yeah, that was in Afghanistan.
Yeah. So
It was
they
the
stole
triangular
something, and yeah, I
aliens.
don't know what they stole, but they got it back. But apparently 7,000 National Guard got killed in the process. But I said to my father, if on his deathbed, if you're going to give your life in service, choose your master wisely. You know, it's one of them.
So a last thing that we're going to... The rest of it will probably be free for all, but the last thing we want to bring up is the pyramids.
Okay.
Oh, yes.
Pyramids,
Yeah.
Okay. Yes,
So like the
interesting one.
yeah.
Right. You know when you go in to put your wheel on your car, and they put the thing on the spinny thing to balance it, and then they put a piece of lead on with hammer.
Yeah.
The pyramids were put there in the wrong place to make the earth wobble. Earth wobble. Google earth wobble. It's all about the wobble. We shouldn't be wobbling like it's wobbling, and it's only wobbling.
I've heard about that.
It's only wobbling. It's only wobbling like that because the pyramid's an amazingly powerful place. I've never been. I wouldn't. It would be weird because I go, but I could never go in a tomb. I could never go in a tomb because out of respect.
That's me as well. Whenever I take my students to places, I say, "Are you going to invite me into this stone circle? I don't like. It's against what I'm there for. I'm not meant to go into these places. You're not meant to go into tubes." One thing today is right. This is an amazing fact, and this helps. I just come back from a trip to Hadrian's Wall on Monday. I had 13 of my students up there. It was great. And I was teaching today, and one of my students, he turned around and he said, "Did you know that all the stones used on Hadrian's Wall, all the towers and all the rest of it, only equate to half I think he said it was 2.5 million cubic tons. It's only half the amount of stone used to create the one great pyramid at Giza. It's only half. All the stones along Hadrian's Wall, all the forts and stuff, right? It's only half compared to that one pyramid, right? So you're talking about this wobble, right? That must be extremely heavy, right?
Yeah.
And it's using granite, it's using limestone, right? So when you think about the absolute vastness of that, just the 1 hour of the three, right, is strangely enough fitting into what Daz just blooming said.
Yeah, but the thing is, a triangle, a pyramid is a very powerful shape.
And it's perfect.
I'll give you an example. There's two amazing, mind-blowing things about geomancy. It's the fact that I met somebody at Avery who had built his greenhouse in the shape of a pyramid, and he shaved in his pyramid every morning, and his blade never rusted after 3 years. Same Bic razor, 3 years in the pyramid because the energy of the pyramid. And the second thing is,
how does that work?
Cleopatra's needles were built at Russian oil installations, and the production went up by 25%. It works because Earth's energy. These are powerful shapes. Pyramid is an immensely powerful shape. You know, for example, Stonehenge and Avery, they're not just put in random places. These were designed by Druids to get the... It's like Stonehenge. I tell you now, when people get upset with me, Stonehenge was never a sacred site.
Oh, I agree!
It was never a sacred
I'm an
site.
archaeologist. I agree with you.
You know what it was? It was a Druid ego trip. Look what we can do. Look how much energy we can steal from Avery. Look what we can do.
I will go with the ego trip bit. Can I just tell a little story, right? When I was doing my my master's degree in University of Highlands, they had a new professor a couple of years ago called Professor Colin Richards, right? And he said to me, one of his colleagues went to a Pacific island. She was there to witness the moving of a stone, right, on a Pacific island. Now, this stone itself was around 10 tons in weight, and it was two lads, and there was a huge crowd of people, and she witnessed these two lads moving this stone over 1 mile, right? And he never described what they used, but probably worked out that they used seaweed or something. But anyway, they moved this stone over, as I say, over 1 mile, right? Along the way, one of the boys got injured. He had to go and be taken to hospital. So the last bit of it, right, the stone was moved by this one lad, a 10-ton stone, right? Anyway, next minute she turned, the stone was placed there, and the next minute she turned around, right, and everyone had disappeared, right? So she said the next day, what was all that about? Why didn't they erect the thing? And the people said, what did they need to erect it for? The whole process was to move that 10-ton stone from there to there. It is what they do.
Yeah,
And she said, but we don't do that in Britain. And then the thing is, how do we know they didn't do that in Britain? How do we know that they weren't some kind of ego trip?
Yeah. No, but it was because Merlin's guided tour of Stonehenge is amazing, and he explained to me how all the different stones fitted in. It was when you look at the Stonehenge along the line of the Michael and Mary ley line, you can actually kind of see through the stones. But when you look at it from the 90-degree angle, you can't. And that was because the energy, they do patter cake with the energy, like patter cake. Bang, 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 amazing thing. And then all those lumps around Stonehenge, they got this dark stone from Newtown. I've actually got some pieces of it. Merlin guided me to where it was. And they're like about 12 foot long, and about 6 or 7 foot wide. And they're like playing cards. They're like 2 foot thick. And they're really dense stone to like balance energy.
Newtown in
and
Paris, yeah?
Slotted down. And they're slotted down. And the heelstone, that's the best story, is the heelstone. The heelstone wasn't there when they first built it. They did it, they built it, and the energy was so nuts. They went to Derbyshire to get the heelstone, to put the heelstone in, and it goes to 400 foot above Stonehenge, and it acts as a cloudbuster to stop the energy from getting too nuts. It's an ego trip from start to finish.
So, channeling.
Yeah.
I want to talk a bit about channeling. Obviously, there's what's called clairvoyance as well. What's the difference?
Okay, clairvoyance is slightly different in as much as clairvoyance, they have a bit of... I'm what's called a clairsentient, so I only feel, I don't actually see, right? Now, when you're seeing, you're basically... A clairvoyant will have a DAB radio, and I've got an FM, so I can tune my dial, and when I tune my dial into upstairs and they got their tuned at the same time, boom, they're already pre-programmed to just pick anyone, so they've got an antenna and anyone can just jump on them. Whereas I basically call the angels and the gods, the higher dimensional beings, to come and I've channeled loads of famous names. Just it's up to them whether they come. But I've actually spoke to Colonel Gaddafi and Saddam Hussein for specific reasons. I didn't just call them. I spoke to Henry VII, and I've asked them. But I won't go into detail about whether they'd like to help out on certain things that we were doing. Oh, Lady Diana as well. So yeah. So, amongst others, but it's up to them whether they come, and then of course they're not always around you, so it takes a couple of hours to kind of tee up. It's like if I call my dad sometimes, but my dad like hangs around South Wales, so like if I was in France and I spoke to my dad, it takes a couple of hours to sort that call out. But it's weird. I very rarely fly now, and there's a reason for that. Because I found out that my higher self doesn't go in an airplane. Nobody's higher self goes in an airplane. They have to make their own way, so they know where you're going. But if you work with angels like yourself and me, then they'll take you. But you have to ask them. So if you ever go fly anywhere, call the angels and say, look, can you take my higher self to where I'm going? Because, and it's a lot easier for them. They can get their feet up. So, yeah. So... that's food for thought, because in the future, planes are going to have to be designed differently to include our higher selves as well, because the planes literally, our higher selves are like 2 or 3 foot above, so there's literally just no place for them.
Do you know, you just answered a question I've got. A couple of years ago, we had all those terrible plane crashes. There was the year of the MH37. You had the one above Russia being shot down. There was a couple of others, and I just sat down and I thought the Wright brothers' first plane, I think this is right, went up in 1906. How is it they haven't invented a plane that when it's up in the air something goes wrong, right? At this stage we should have the ability that people can survive a plane crash. Nobody can survive a plane crash. Why haven't we got the technology to do that? And you may have just answered the question.
Yeah. Well, the thing is, there's we're in the realms of we are live in a 4D world, and people think it's a 3D world. So I'm talking about the extra D, and certainly in the future, this extra D will actually have to be designed for. And it's just kind of food for thought. This is why people get jet lag, because like you imagine your higher self is spending all that energy going across the world to my brother went to China, and I persuaded the angels
Bit of a
to
long
bring
way.
him back,
Yeah.
to bring his higher self back to see, and he felt a lot better because of it. So yeah.
So we're going to end it there for now. On the next show with you, Daz, we're going to talk about ghosts.
Oh yeah.
And then do a bit about like the freegan lifestyle, out of bins and stuff like that.
Yeah. Oh no, because at the end of the day, the waste is scandalous, and
It's disgusting.
I'm really pleased that some of the supermarkets have got a lot better, but there's still scum that are completely scandalous.
Yeah.
I'm going to say thank you very much, Daz, for coming along today. I'm looking forward to the next show. This is we'll all say goodbye in turn. This is Karl-James Langford for Ktfm. Thank you very much for listening, and
So Tom Savery for Ktfm. Thank you for listening. It's been an interesting show.
And Daz the Druid, thanks for listening, and hope to speak again soon. Bye now.
thank you very much.